Hello, listeners. Welcome to the Ritual Disc Flip Podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Chris Nays. I am a music lover from St. Louis, Missouri, in the United States of America. And on this podcast, we review records old and new. We review live shows. I have guests on almost every episode, and we do all of this together. And, sometimes I'll even have people on the show who went to shows that want to review them here, and I'll ask you about it and we'll get into it. But today, I have a couple of things to address up top, and then we'll get into the body of the episode. I wanted this episode to be the Empath Devin Townsend review, but we're going to have to postpone that a little bit. I did post about it on the socials, but if you didn't see that, here's an explanation for the delay. Sometimes my work makes me come in for an extra shift on the weekend. Now, said shift was on the exact same day that I had planned to have my guest over to my apartment, and we were going to record the review, but no time for that. Got to go to work. So that sucks, right, listeners? Yeah, it does. And it ended up being a particularly shitty night at work too, so there's that. But we do what we have to do. We move forward, and sometimes we improvise, and that is what I'm going to do today. I had also planned on doing a Record Store Day episode, either a mini or a full length. I'm not sure what this is going to end up being. But what I'm going to do is go through all of the Record Store Day picks that I was able to find and give you my story about Record Store Day for 2019. And also, I found a bunch of stuff in the secret stash of the record store that I went to. So I'm going to talk about those as well. If you're into the video side of things, I plan on putting a companion video explanation of the things that I got yesterday at the record store, and that will be up very soon, if not already up. So go and check out that so you can see all the stuff that I'm about to talk about in its visual form and get a better idea of what you're looking for if you want to go and get the same stuff, or if you're interested in it at all. That is on my YouTube at Chris Nays. My last name is spelled Naes. Very easy to find on the YouTubes. I'll have links to that in the show notes for this as well. So, now that all that explaining is out of the way, I guess we can move forward. So, as I said, I worked a extra shift, and that bled into the next morning of Record Store Day. Now, I left work at 7:30 a.m., which is about half an hour from the record store that I was going to. My preferred record store here in St. Louis, in the Maplewood neighborhood of St. Louis, and it is Planet Score, right in the heart of Maplewood. So what I did is I drove straight there, didn't get anything to eat after work or anything like that. Wanted to get in line as soon as possible. For some reason, I was under the impression they were opening at 7 a.m. I don't know where I read that. Maybe I got it confused with another record store's opening time, something like that. But I was only going to have time to go to one. That's all I prepared to do. I also had band practice later in the day, so I had to make sure I got some sleep before that happened in the evening. So anyway, I get to Planet Score. There's a line up front. I immediately figure out, doors aren't open yet. This is great. There's probably about 15 people in line, something like that. on the side street, right next to the store itself, there's a parking spot right up front. Prime parking spot. I whip the Jeep around, back in there, boom. Get in line, right behind a fellow from Infinity Metal Magazine or something like that. Anyways, he dressed like Rob Halford for the day, for the occasion. Very eccentric type dude. I think his name was Mark. Anyway, so I'm in line. Guy named Jeremy walks up behind me. He'll come back up later, but it's kind of chilly in the morning, not crazy. It isn't raining like it is today or anything as of this recording. He's got flip-flops on. I immediately noticed that that's a little weird for it being as cold as it is in the morning. Why are you wearing flip-flops? And, it was just odd to me. Anyway, we strike up a little bit of conversation about, when the store actually opens. He tells me he was there yesterday and sort of got clued into some of the stuff they had and wouldn't have. He seems knowledgeable, right? He seems like he kind of knows what sort of releases are going to be there too. He tells me he wants some stuff by the singer of the Pixies, which I believe he ended up being able to grab. But yeah, just a lot of sitting around from 8 o'clock until just before 10 when they actually opened. So everybody rushes in, and it ended up being about 20 to 25 people in front of me. And everybody sort of lines the perimeter of the store. So this line is for the new release, the exclusive Record Store Day releases. My line friend Jeremy gets out of line and is nowhere to be seen. So I don't know what happened with him. Should back up a little bit. They did a promotion where a local indie record label hid something and hid a record in the store and put a clue up that was very obvious. What all you had to do was Google what the clue was, which was like it ended up being a reggae record by Toots and the Maytals, and I knew which one it was just by Googling very quickly. Turns out Jeremy or Jeremiah, I'm not sure. He came there with the sole purpose of getting that record and also getting the $100 gift certificate that came with it. Now, to me, he should have stayed in line, and if he got to it first, he would have got to it, but I guess there's not really any rules around this sort of thing. It does sort of take away from the fun of the situation, though. Like, you go for the record store day releases. Added bonus if you know which record to look for as you're in the line. If that was the case, I would have gotten it before him. But he sort of like raced me inside. Like, he was very antsy. I guess he figured somebody was probably going to grab for him. I get it. I'm probably talking about this way too much, but anyway. Waiting in line for about, I would say, 20 minutes before I get to the secret stash. And in the secret stash, here's what I find. I have to shuffle some stuff around here. I find Metallica Ride the Lightning for only $8, and it is a picture disc version. Now, I'm not sure of the origin. It's sort of it doesn't have a case that tells you any information about it. Excuse me. I'm certain I could look up, where the origin of this is. But on the back, I didn't see this before. Probably should have looked at that when I was doing the video. Okay, Music for Nations. So, it has some photos from around the era. It looks like stuff that's in the inside of the CD booklet version, and also the regular LP version. So anyway, I'm stoked for this. It was the most expensive of the things that I got in the Secret Stash boxes. Also picked up the Jimi Hendrix Experience, Are You Experienced? Previously owned by one T. Hackworth. I went to school with some Hackworths. I wonder if they're related. Probably are. $7 for this. A little bit of wear on the cover slipcase, whatever you call it. There's some tape at the bottom, but otherwise fantastic condition. Record. I did not previously own it, so that's awesome. Yeah, Jimmy's kind of otherworldly in his oeuvre. He's the epitome of a unique personality in the world of music. So that if you're going to own records by Jimmy, this is certainly one that you want. Our Experience is amazing. And going back to the Metallica Ride the Lightning, like that's one of the first records I ever owned. It kind of blew my mind. I've sort of talked about it on other podcasts that you can check out. The 2 Metallica episodes I did here. Also the podcast I did with Metal Up Your Podcast a couple months ago after the Metallica Kansas City show. Highly recommend listening to those guys' show. They're amazing. I also picked up Queen A Day of the Races for $3. A wonderful copy. This is a great album. Queen is kind of perfect. Of course every album has its clunkers, but I'm very excited to listen to that. These Secret Stashes, I've yet to be able to find the time to dig into them. I've listened to some other stuff. The 7 inches I'll talk about in a minute, but not these. Picked up a Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers album, Long After Dark. I've never owned this, but it has You Got Lucky, Change of Heart, 2 great songs that I know by them. One of the albums produced by Jimmy Iovine and Tom Petty in tandem from 1982. $3 grab. I mean, look, these are deals you're not going to find anywhere. And I just, while I'm standing in line and going through these and people in front of me are pulling them out, I'm like, fuck, I gotta buy that. Pardon my French. And also, the most heavy of these grabs, arguably, between this and Ride the Lightning, is Black Sabbath, Master of Reality. Kind of a rough looking cover. Somebody colored in Sabbath with a pen on the front, which is odd. And then the white of the Master of Reality has been worn down, or maybe it never even had it. I'm not really sure if there's different versions of this or not. Anyway. Sweet Leaf, Children of the Grave, Embryo and Orchid instrumentals. Great record. I said this on the video thing, but my feeling is this is the last of the good Ozzy Black Sabbath records. And then you go to Dio, who is obviously great. But let's talk about the record store day stuff. I did this maybe a little bit out of order, but whatever. First up, the double pack of Overkill and Bomber 7 inches. Overkill has Overkill and on the B-side Too Late, 2 fucking amazing songs by them, and Bomber has Bomber, and on the B-side, Over the Top, also amazing. These are awesome picture disc, 7 inches, very heavy for 7 inches in weight, and some great art that you can see if you look at the video. They also have windows when you open up the double package. It kind of opens up from the middle, and you can see the picture disc through the windows. I love this. Put out by Murder One Records. I would never pass on this. Let's see here. Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody, 7-inch, with I'm in Love with My Car on the B-side. This is how this was originally released back in the day. And not the same cover, but the iconic cover of Freddie at Wembley, or at least an artistic interpretation of it, with the sunlight going down in the background. Some photos from that Wembley show. Just fantastic. I think these photos are all from the It's a Kind of Magic tour. Wonderful. Mastodon put out Stairway to Nick John, which is their tribute to their late manager. He passed away last year. It's side A is Stairway to Heaven, covered by Mastodon, and side B is Stairway to Heaven live, recorded by a guy's cell phone, which I would rather have had another Zeppelin cover or something else as the B-side, in my taste, but the art direction's cool. I love the cover of Nick, and it sounds great. Bran actually sang vocals on it, which is something he does a lot more now for Mastodon. And then finally, Chuck Mosley's 7-inch, the Joe Hayes Session number 2. And on the A side, it has their cover of Nothing Compares to You, originally written by Prince, and side B is Take This Bottle, originally by the version of Faith No More with Mike Patton, many years after Chuck Mosley had left the band or was fired. This was a great 7-inch. I loved both of these songs. It's from some of his last recordings ever. Chuck Mosley is kind of misunderstood by people that try to approach Faith No More now. His vocal style is very unconventional, very punk rock, and people that love Mike Patton's stuff in Faith No More don't I don't know. At least I've seen people say this, that they don't understand Chuck's style, really. Chuck was kind of the perfect singer for the band at the time, if you view it in context of where the band was and what style of band it was at the time. His vocals are perfect for that stuff. And it's sort of the baby version of Faith No More. And Mike Patton was able to help them reach the next level, and then new direction stylistically every album after The Real Thing. I'm a huge Faith No More fan. That's also some of the first music I ever attempted to play on drums and played with Ian and Josh in my parents' basement back in the day. This 7-inch holds a very dear place in my heart. I love it so much. I guess I can go back, sort of give my story on all of this stuff. Queen, my stepdad showed me Queen when I was very young. first introduced to Bohemian Rhapsody through Wayne's World, and then Keishi would play all kinds of stuff. I remember hearing Another One Bites the Dust as we were driving past Six Flags one time, and and I asked who it was because I wasn't sure. It sounded totally unique and interesting to me. And my stepdad George told me that it was Queen, and it sort of blew my fucking mind because Another One Bites the Dust is worlds different than Bohemian Rhapsody. And of course, all I'd ever heard is the controversy of what became of Queen, and the unfortunate stories that came out in the press about Freddie, and how my dad sort of perceived all of that, and it was very interesting conversations to have with your parents about what it means to be an individual in the rock and roll world at the time. They couldn't come out and say he couldn't come out and say he was bisexual or that he was gay or whatever Freddie saw himself as, because it legit would have ruined his career at the time. Today, one side is even more accepting today than ever, and the other side is even more against as ever. And it's a sad state of affairs. It's sort of, the world is split in their views, and it's I don't want to get too hippie-ish as I sit here in a tie-dye shirt with Slayer on it, but people need to get together, and music is what brings people together. So I'm hoping this podcast is helping do that. Motorhead is not a band that I got into until maybe like 6 or 7 years ago. I got way more into them and sort of started buying up more of their stuff. Unfortunately, only got to see Motorhead one time live, and it was part of a festival show. So, very short set, but still amazing, and I'm very grateful. Yeah, no, I first heard about Motorhead through the Metallica Behind the Music. And Lemmy is, he's iconic. He was amazing. He's a great, unique bass player. Motorhead's groundbreaking stuff. He comes from the world of, the Chuck Berrys and the super old school earliest rock and roll days. He takes that style, he mixes it in with punk, he mixes it in with whatever metal was at the time, and what comes out is Motorhead, and this ugly, fast, brutal music that has inspired people forever after, man. And rest in peace to all these dudes now, unfortunately. But the 7 inches are great. They're total must-buys. Mastodon is a band that I got into probably around 2004, whenever Blood Mountain was out. I got to see them for free after being a roadie at a show. I got at a Slayer show. I have free tickets to Pops for like a year, and I saw Mastodon open for someone, maybe maybe Dillinger or something like that. That sounds familiar. Anyway, they blew me away back then. Brand's drumming is very inspirational. The stuff he does kind of like it flows super well. So being able to play metal music that flows is the challenge of that style of music, is to make it flow, to make it cohesive. It's challenging, and he's really good. Seemingly never runs out of energy. Black Sabbath, yeah, I went to Ozfest back in the day. I saw one of the revivals of Sabbath. I saw Ozzy play in his solo act a bunch of times. Yeah, I didn't really appreciate Sabbath as much as I should have back in the day, but man, they're also innovators. They come from the earliest days of heavy metal. God, you gotta appreciate the heaviness of Black Sabbath. Tony Iommi, God, he's amazing. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, I already gave my little spiel about them, but Tom Petty is far underrated today. Yeah, he's great. And yeah, Metallica Ride the Lightning is maybe the most pure Metallica record for what they are. They are they're great. There's what else can I say about this stuff, guys? I can't really go crazy trying to dig even further in my brain about this stuff. I kind of just wanted to throw together a mini for you. Um Follow the show on the social medias. If you like this, retweet it, share it with a friend. Give us a review on your podcast app of choice. It really helps people who haven't discovered the show yet find the show. I haven't really gotten any reviews since I relaunched the show. I would really like it if a few of you guys would go on there at least and do that. It honestly does help us a lot, especially on like iTunes and stuff like that. As I said before, check out the YouTube video pairing I'm going to do with this. I promise to get my friend Nick on the show as soon as possible to help me review Empath. He is far more knowledgeable in Devin Townsend than I am. I think that's going to be a really good one. And I'm going to make it happen as soon as I can. It might not be the next episode. I'm going to do whatever I can to make that happen, but we just have to sort of take it day by day and see what happens. If it looks like it's not going to be, then I will start research on another thing, and I will give you more information as that comes up. I need to contact, I don't know why I'm telling you this, but I need to contact Thelmo because we talked about him coming on to review his Dream Theater show, which should be coming up this week or next week, something like that. So that'll probably be a review that's coming soon, and I guess we're going to close up the show. Thank you guys for joining me today, and I'll see you on the next episode of the Ritual Disc Flip. Goodbye, everybody. Bye.